While hockey is clearly a team game, there is no doubt that every once in a while there is someone who is truly special that comes along that leaves a mark on history in one way or another. Whether it be a famous goal, which turns out to be a famous picture like Bobby Orr did with the Bruins, or somebody who smashes every scoring record in the book, like Wayne Gretzky did with the Edmonton Oilers, Los Angeles Kings, and a few other teams, or somebody who helps literally half their league championships in team history, like Henry Richards did. We will talk about 5 who made their mark and how they did it. So here we go. At number 1, we have Bobby Orr. What made Bobby Orr so good? At the time he entered the league, Bobby Orr was a defenseman of a different breed, one that the league very rarely, if ever, saw. He had the defensive abilities of a defenseman, but he also had the scoring abilities of a forward or someone who plays on one of the wings. Ken Dryden, who was a Canadiens goalie at the time Orr was in the league, had this to say about him. When he began to move, the sensation was unique. All the Canadiens began backpedaling in a small panic, like beachgoers sighting a coming monster wave, Dryden once said. He brought others with him. He wanted them involved. That's what made him so different. It felt like a 5-player stampede moving toward you, and at his pace. He pushed his teammates because you're playing with the best player in the league, and he's giving you the puck and you just can't mess up. You had to be better than you had ever been. So how many Stanley Cups did he help the Bruins win? He helped them win 2 Stanley Cups, one of which is one of the most famous goals of all time due to him making a Superman move mid-air after being tripped by a St. Louis Blues defender. He led the Bruins to another cup in 1972. Besides winning the cup, he also won the Ross Trophy during the same season, and then again in 1974 to 1975, the Hart Trophy during the 1969 to 1970 season, one which he defended up until 1971 to 1972. Won the 1966 to 1967 Calder Trophy, 8 Norris Trophies, and the 1974 to 1975 Pearson Award. For number 2, we have Guy Lafleur. So what made Guy Lafleur so good? Lafleur, who was once labeled as the last of the greatest Habs skaters by the website hockeywriters.com, and it's not hard to see why. He won 6 consecutive 50-goal, 100-point seasons, helping lead Montreal to 5 Stanley Cups in the 1970s, which was in 1973 and then again every year from 1976 to 1979, and it's not like he was lacking in accolades either. He also won 3 consecutive Ross trophies from 1976 to 1978, the Pearson Award 3 times, and 2 Hart trophies. The Hart trophies came during the 1976 to 1977 and 1977 to 1978 seasons. For number 3, Wayne Gretzky, and as you probably know, is quite literally nicknamed the Great One. So how exactly did Gretzky get his nickname and when? It's actually a lot younger than you would think. He told the Dan Patrick Show in 2014 that he got the nickname when he was 10 years old, and the first time he was ever called that, it was by a local reporter. And on paper and the ice, he is clearly one of the best to ever scorers to play the game. Although you wouldn't think it just by staring at him if you don't know who the 6', 185-pound center is, and you are a defenseman, you may be salivating at how you may be able to knock him into the glass. Unfortunately for Gretzky, most defensemen knew who he was and figured out how to burn them anyway. He is the fastest player to ever reach 1,000 points for his career at a mark of 424 games, and nobody else is even close. In fact, he is the only player to do it in under 500 games. The next closest to accomplish the feat is the Penguins' Mario Lemieux, who did in 513 games. So if you're not much of a hockey buff, you might be wondering what made Wayne Gretzky so good. There is no question he had unparalleled speed and stick-handling abilities as he gracefully made his way up and down the ice. In fact, he has the most points by anybody in NHL history. He has 893 goals, 1,963 points for 2,857 for just under 2 goals a game. The next closest players is not even close to Gretzky, is Jaromir Jagr, who currently has 766 goals and 1,155 assists for 1,921 points. And it doesn't appear that it's going to be broken anytime soon as the player who has the most points, which is still in the NHL, is ranked number 15 and 16. Who are they? Sidney Crosby of Pittsburgh and Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals, who have 1,502 and 1,485 points respectively, although Ovechkin does have a decent chance at surpassing Gretzky in goals, as he currently is only 74 behind Gretzky's record of 894 at 822. So now you may be wondering, how did all that scoring help his team? It won him some Stanley Cups, 4 of them to be exact, and he got pretty much all of them at once as he led the Oilers to 4 Stanley Cups in 5 years, 1984, 1985, 1987, and 1988, all with the Edmonton Oilers. For a 4th greatest NHL Stanley Cup champion, we have Mario Lemieux. For Lemieux, he wasn't just exceptional for what he did on the ice. He also had to overcome personal challenges, as well as he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma when he was 27 years old. And what was even more remarkable is that he was able to return to the ice in less than a year after being diagnosed, which all occurred in 1993. The one thing that stopped his scoring stats from becoming greater is that he had to consistently miss games due to constant injury, as he played less than 70 games 11 times over the course of his 17-year career. So despite all of the injuries and cancer, why is Lemieux on here and why is he so good? Despite having to miss all those games due to injuries for his career, he still managed to accumulate 690 goals and 1,033 points for his career and managed to lead the Pittsburgh Penguins to 2 Stanley Cups. For the 5th and final player, we have the Canadiens' Henry Richard, who was part of the Canadiens dynasty during the 1970s and was no stranger to losing. So if he wins so much, how many Stanley Cups did Henry Richard win? That would be 11, which spanned out over the course of 3 decades and accounts for just under half of the Canadiens' 24 Stanley Cup wins in team history, where he was quite the contributor. In a matter of fact, he scored the game-winning goal of the 1965 Stanley Cup Final against the Detroit Red Wings. He won his first in 1956, which was his rookie year, and won his last in 1973, and contributed the talents of stick handling, playmaking, and forechecking. He was so great at playmaking that he was nicknamed Pocket Rocket. He got half of those in the later half of the 1950s as the Canadiens defended the Cup every year from 1956 to 1960 and was a member of every one of those teams, including a year in which he led the league in assists in 1958 with 52.